Hello students, welcome to Legacy AIS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about a very crucial climate change topic that is related to the permafrost. Permafrost is the region that is found in the cryospheric regions of the earth, which basically refers to the Arctic region more precisely in the northern hemisphere. So the question is why permafrost is continuously thawing for last few decades. Thawing basically means melting. So why permafrost is melting and what is permafrost first of all? And what are the implications that we can see in the short term as well as long term as a result of this permafrost thaw? So, but before going into detail in this particular topic, let us try to understand the context in which we are discussing this particular issue of today. So, the most recently, with rising temperature across the globe, obviously due to the global warming, increase in the release of greenhouse gases, thawing of permafrost is basically going to destabilize thousands of industrial sites and linked contaminated areas in the Arctic. As a result of this, there is a high possibility that huge amount of toxic substances across the region can be basically which is trapped in the permafrost can be released, according to the new study. And as per the same study, it believes that almost 2,100 industrial sites and somewhere between 5,600 to 10,000 contaminated sites are under direct threat of destabilization by the end of this century. The study was published in the journal Nature Communications early this year, and it has been carried out by the research has been carried out by the scientists from two main countries, that is Germany and Norway. So let us try to understand the background of this issue. Now, if we talk about the Arctic, so it seems that since it has extremes of temperature, it is not inhabitable. But this is not case. It is not true case. What happens that in the Arctic region also we have countless industrial facilities such as oil fields, pipelines, mines, as well as military bases built on the permafrost. Basically, this was once believed to be perennially stable and reliable area. That is why so much construction has happened on the permafrost region. The example of such constructions you can see from the nearby picture. And the consequences of global warming, when these structures were being erected on the Arctic permafrost, that time the scientists, the people, the builders, construction specialists, they were sure that these are going to remain stable for a long period of time. However, the consequences of global warming and thawing permafrost were not taken into account in these studies, and definitely, at least, they were underestimated. There are many engineering studies from that time that considered permafrost as favorable condition for the dispersal or disposal of industrial legacies and other wastes, because it was believed that since permafrost is a kind of perennial area, it will never thaw, it will never melt. Thus, whatever waste material we are disposing in the permafrost will remain trapped for a very long period of time, and thus we will save our environment from the pollution. However, reverse has happened, and now it is believed that the toxic waste from these industrial facilities, which has been buried in the permafrost, on the assumption that it will stay locked away permanently, but danger looms as the planet continues to heat up, because as the effect of global warming is continuously being observed, the temperature is continuously rising, that is causing melting and thawing of permafrost, and all this toxic waste that has been pushed or put into this permafrost for 3, 4, 5 decades are at a risk of now getting out from these areas. So now let us try to understand in scientific terms what is permafrost. So permafrost can be simply defined as any ground surface that stays frozen. By frozen we mean when the temperature of this ground surface never exceeds 0 degrees Celsius. That means it remains lower for at least 2 years straight. Now, this permanently frozen ground obviously can be found only in the higher latitudes, because that is the area only where we have very low temperatures, and they are often found in the Arctic regions such as Greenland, which is a territory of Denmark, Alaska, which is a state of USA, Canada, Russia, and the Eastern European countries, and Northwestern European countries such as Norway, Finland, and the Scandinavian regions. As far as the definition by NASA is concerned, that is National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Space Agency of USA, it says that permafrost is not just ice sheets. Rather, it is a combination. Combination of what? Combination of soil layers, combination of rocks and sand. And these all are held together by the ice that remains in the frozen state due to the temperature below 0 degrees Celsius. The soil and ice in permafrost stay frozen all year long. However, although the ground remains perennially frozen, permafrost regions aren't always covered with the snow, as you can see from this particular picture. This area is example of permafrost, but we can say that only the lower part we have something what we can call as ice sheet, while the upper part we can say there is no deposition of snow. Despite that, it is considered as permafrost because the definition of permafrost is not about snow-covered surface, rather it is a temperature that should remain below 0 degrees Celsius. Now, what is the finding of the current study that we are talking about? So, first of all, it says that especially since the end or during the Cold War period, there has been continuous expansion of both industrial development as well as economic development in the Arctic permafrost region. It actually became a center for resource extraction and military activities, and that is why we have formation of what you might know as Arctic Council, where we have 8 countries we are having border with Arctic Ocean as a member status, and India is having a observer status. And thus it is because of global warming what you can also expect that this kind of situation, the melting of ice sheets in the Arctic and the thawing of permafrost region is expected to occur at a higher pace, at higher rate in the coming decades. And that is why this problem is going to become much and more severe in the coming times. So anyway, after the Cold War or during the Cold War, when there are a lot of resource extraction station military activities were being carried out in the Arctic region, it has led to accumulation of huge volume of what we can consider as industrial and toxic waste on or in the permafrost region, which was never removed. The example of such waste materials are drilling and mining wastes, toxic substances like drilling muds and fluids, mine waste heaps, heavy metals such as mercury, for example, spilled fuels, as well as radioactive waste are the type of waste that are basically present in the permafrost region. Now, the extent of the thawing of permafrost we can understand from this chart that has been published by Carl Churchill. He has expected that this is the area that will be affected in the coming decades. For example, currently we talk about this yellow shade, we can say light shaded region is where we have the thawing of the permafrost, and gradually by 2050, 2070, what will happen? A large part of area they can see are becoming more and more redder. It represents that these areas are at very great risk of undergoing melting and thawing that will release huge amount of waste in the environment. Now, coming back to the major finding of the study, it says that since huge amount of waste already has been accumulated in the permafrost region, now what we can expect to happen in the future? So as we know, due to the continuous rise and increase in the emission of greenhouse gases, we are witnessing a phenomena that is something we can say is global warming. The global warming is responsible for climate changes both in the oceanic surface, in the atmospheric region, and thus overall this leads to what we consider as a climate change. So as the climate change phenomena picks up, Arctic will become more and more warmer, and at present rate even Arctic is getting warmer by almost 4 times as fast as the rest of the planet. Due to this continuous warming and rapid warming of Arctic, it will cause rapid thawing of permafrost, and the rapid thawing of permafrost will cause destabilization of the industrial sites and the contaminated areas. Once this destabilization occurs, then what? Once this distillation start to take place, obviously there will be release of the toxic substances, the example of which we have just discussed, across the region, and this will cause threat, a severe threat basically, to numerous species from small species to large species living in the Arctic region and the health of people who depend on these species. For example, we discussed that mercury is one of the substances that are found in the permafrost region. Now, due to thawing of permafrost, if the mercury is released, it is something that can be ingested by the fishes. And now we know that large number of people who are living along the Arctic region depend on the fishes as their main source of diet. So from fish, the mercury can be amplified and enter into the food chain. And from this food chain, they can enter into the body of humans, body of people, and thus we can have mercury poisoning and mercury poisoning related diseases as we have discussed before. So that is one of the examples of challenges that we can face in the near time from the thawing of permafrost. Now, as far as the future forecast in terms of number is concerned, currently as per the data which we have, total 4,500 industrial facilities are present or situated in the permafrost region, and this has led to development of 13,000 to 20,000 contaminated sites. That means where the waste from these sites can be, from these facilities can be found in the permafrost. So there is always a risk of destabilizing due to this thawing of the permafrost present. Due to this, thousands of the known industrial sites and about 2,200 to 4,800 of the known contaminated sites are currently under study by the research team. Now we have two different scenarios that how future can be predicted. Scenario one is if we are able to take rapid action as we have discussed and as we have projected basically not projected, but we have what we can say given us ourselves a target in the Paris summit of conference of parties meeting of UNFCCC in 2015 that we have to focus on the low emission. So suppose we have been become successful, we became successful and we are able to have a low emission scenario that is consistent with limiting the global warming target to 2 degrees Celsius. In that case, out of the 4,500 industrial facilities, 2,100 industrial facilities and 5,600 to 10,000 concentrated sites will actually face the thawing of permafrost, causing release of toxic waste by the end of the century. The second scenario, which is more grimmer, is if we are not able to control the global warming to a limit of 2 degrees by the end of century, and if we keep warming at the present level, then almost all of the known industrial and contaminated sites would be affected by thawing of permafrost, causing release of huge volume of toxic gases and the pollutant materials in the atmosphere and in the surrounding environment. Now, this is the release of toxic waste is not the only problem that we will have to face due to the thawing of permafrost. There are some other consequences as well. For example, there is a huge volume of greenhouse gases that are present in the atmosphere, present in the permafrost region, and this can be released into the atmosphere due to their melting. If you believe the report of NASA that has been published in year 2022, it says that Arctic permafrost alone holds an estimated 1,700 billion metric tons of carbon that includes two major greenhouse gases, CO2 and methane. If you try to understand this number from the perspective of the emission that we do on the Earth, that's roughly 51 times the amount of carbon the world released together as a fossil fuel emissions 2019. So you can understand that how big reservoir, carbon dioxide reservoir or greenhouse gas reservoir Arctic permafrost is. So a pulse of carbon release from the permafrost to the atmosphere within the next 100 years, probably even sooner, can be recorded, which can cause what we can call as a self-sustaining cycle, self-sustaining vicious cycle, we can say, because what basically is happening, we have high level of greenhouse gases such as CO2, methane in the atmosphere that is causing global warming. That means rise in the temperature of the earth. Due to this rise in temperature, there will be permafrost that will thaw. Due to the thawing of permafrost, what will happen? Previously frozen organic matter that is basically preserved, or we can say trapped in the permafrost, they will start to decay. Microorganisms will start to act upon these matters, organic matters, and they will decay. As a result of the decay of this organic matter, CO2 and methane will be released. As the CO2 methane releases, again the concentration of greenhouse gases go up. So now you can understand that what kind of cycle you are talking about. High amount of greenhouse gas is causing thawing of the permafrost, and thawing of permafrost is causing release of more and more greenhouse gases that in turn will cause more and more thawing of the permafrost. So that is why we are calling it a self-sustaining vicious cycle. Apart from that, it talk about the permafrost. A recent research that has been conducted by the Columbia University in USA, it says that the thawing of permafrost would also possibly unleash thousands of dormant viruses and bacteria. These viruses and bacteria, since they are present in the permafrost region and are in the environment or temperature of less than 0 degrees Celsius, they are dormant, they are not active. But once their temperature increases, they will release into the atmosphere, and some of these could be new viruses or even ancient ones for which humans lack immunity and cures, or immune diseases can spread in the society that has been eliminated till now, such as smallpox or even bubonic plague. So from the health perspective, from what you can say, from the spread of the pandemic and diseases diseases perspective, also thawing of permafrost is not bearer of the good news. In conclusion, what we can say is the statement that has been given in this regard by the IPCC, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So in one of its report, it has clearly stated that the only solution for us to tackle this problem in the long term is to reduce emission by at least 50% by the year 2030 compared to 2010 levels if we want to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming without overshoot. And the issues and the concerns around the cryosphere, it does not grant us luxury of overshoot, the example of which we have discussed just now. So we'll trigger thresholds of melting that cannot be undone if we exceed this level of warming in the coming decade. It is very, very hard to regrow glaciers, and basically basically glaciers can be grown much more easier compared to the permafrost, because it is basically impossible to grow back permafrost under raising temperature conditions. That means permafrost, which is acting like such a big sink reservoir for all the greenhouse gases, it cannot be restored again if we overshoot the 1.5 degrees Celsius target for global warming. So that is all about this particular issue. I hope you understood about what is permafrost, what are the concerns related to permafrost, and how the thawing of permafrost can have a wider implications on the world climate, global climate. That is all for this video. Like the video, please hit the like button, share it with fellow aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thank you very much.